Hey everyone, welcome to another video. This one goes over the 2025 Social Studies Curriculum Based Test. Alright, remember the rules to like the video, comment, share, and subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber. And at the very end of the video, make a final comment stating how many you think you got out of the 40 items. Alright, so here we go. Let's read the instructions. This one says, examine the map of the world below, then use it to answer item 1. So here we have a map of the world, and clearly you're seeing an X right here. And we know this continent is the continent of Africa. So let's see what they're asking us. Read that X. Number 1 says, which group of people came to the Caribbean from the area labeled X? If it's Africa, then it's the Africans, that's B. Moving on to number 2. Which ethnic group came to Jamaica in the 19th century to escape poverty in their home country? It's not the British, it's the Chinese, and that's B. Alright, moving on to number 3. Why is the Wally celebrated among some Caribbean people? Now you'd have to know which ethnic group brought the Wally here to adequately answer this one. Alright, so it says, A says it's to make East Indian communities more fun and exciting. B says it is to improve the experience of East Indian communities. C says it's to help the East Indians understand their cultures. And D says they celebrate the Wali to help maintain the East Indian culture. I am going to go with D. It is celebrated to help maintain their culture. Let's look at number 4. Which group introduced sweet and sour dishes to Jamaica? If you're one who knows of Sakura, then you know. Without a doubt, it's the Chinese. That's B. Moving on. It says, read the statement in the box below. Then use it to answer item 5. Here is the statement. The East Indians were the only ethnic group in Jamaica to operate businesses after indentureship. Right away we know that's not true. So 5 says, do you agree with this statement? We know it's not any of the yeses because it's not true, so we can't agree with that. So it's between A and B. Let's read A. A says no, because the Chinese and the Africans also sold goods. We know the Africans weren't a part of it. Let's look at B. B says no, because the Chinese also became manufacturers and retailers, and the answer is B. Moving on to number 6. Which is true about the experience of the Chinese in the Caribbean during the 19th century? A says the Chinese were allowed to leave the plantation without permission. No, they couldn't. B says the Chinese were given a variety of clothing. No. C says they were given many food choices. Not at all. D says they were able to maintain their cultural practices, and the answer is D. They were able to maintain their cultural practices. Let's look at number, so this is for numbers 7 to 9. Read the 3 sources below, then use them to answer items 7 to 9. Let's go to source 1, which is the blue box. It says the first people from India came to Jamaica to work on the sugar plantations. After their contracts ended, many East Indians settled in Jamaica and used their skills in jewelry making to earn a living. East Indian jewelry stores and other Indian-owned businesses in Jamaica employ thousands of workers. They work in professions such as medicine, law, and teaching. The East Indians worked hard to become successful business owners and professionals. They also worked with the other ethnic groups to improve the lives of the Jamaican people. Source 2, yellow box. The Europeans and Africans did not think highly of the East Indians, who were doing the work former enslaved Africans refused to do. Hence, there was distrust and dislike among the Africans, East Indians, and Chinese. However, They later became united in the struggle for independence, and with improved education and living close to each other, they began to have a better understanding and appreciation of the others or of each other's culture and contribution. Let's look at source 3, and it gives us the ethnic groups, date of first arrival in Jamaica, and the purpose for which they came. So the heading says table showing the date of the first arrival of some ethnic groups. So we're seeing the Spaniards, and they came in 1494, and it was to expand their territory, meaning they wanted to capture more places under their leadership, alright, or colonial rule. Next we have the British. They came first to Jamaica in 1655, same kind of purpose, to expand their territory. Then we have the East Indians, who came in 1845, and they came on indentureship purpose. Chinese in 1854, and they came with the same purpose, or for the same purpose. The East Indians came, which was for indentureship. Alright, remember after the Emancipation Act, then they came to work. So they were not slaves, they came to work on a contract. Alright, let's see what they're asking. Which source or sources would be most helpful in determining when the British first came to Jamaica? We know it would have to be source 3 without even going back, because that's the only one that gives us the dates. So the answer is C, source 3 only. Alright, let's look at number 8. Which source or sources gives information on the economic contribution of the East Indians? That is source 1. If you're remembering when we read about the East Indians and how they came and they went into law, teaching, business, and all of these, and helped to contribute to the economy and the lives of the Jamaican people. Remember, the other one, source 2, speaks of the Europeans. Alright, so it's source 1 only. Number 9. Which conclusion can be or best be supported by the information in both source 1 and source 2? So when you look at source 1, it speaks of the Indians, and source 2 speaking of the Europeans, which is the best conclusion that will support both of the sources. A says the ethnic groups disliked each other's culture. B says the ethnic groups started successful businesses in Jamaica. C says ethnic groups cooperated to bring about changes in Jamaica. And D says the ethnic groups refused to work on plantations after slavery was abolished. The answer is C. They cooperated to bring about changes in Jamaica over time, though they did have their differences initially. Alright, moving on. It says a grade 6 student was conducting a research and found the paragraph below very helpful. Read it carefully, then use it to answer item 10. Let us read the paragraph. The Indian government took great interest in indentured servants. Most East Indians who signed up for indentureship did so with the hope of returning to their homeland with greater wealth and a better life. Number 10. Which is most likely the focus of the student's research? A says the student wanted to find out what is indentureship. B says how were East Indians recruited for indentureship. C says why did the East Indians take part in indentureship. And D, what were the experiences of the East Indians during indentureship? Nothing about their experience was mentioned. Right away we're seeing that the question could be asked, why did they take part in it? And we're seeing the answer here, that they really signed up for it with the hope of a better life and to go back to their country with wealth. Alright, let's move on to number 11. And it says, the president of a school's culture club was making a speech to the club members. Part of the speech is given below. Use it to answer item 11. Here is the part of the speech that's taken out. I think it is important to preserve Jamaica's culture. As Jamaicans, we need to know where we are coming from. Number 11. Based on the part of the speech given by the Culture Club's president, which would best describe one way of preserving Jamaica's culture? A says by creating local heritage sites. Remember, we think in Jamaica now, so we have to think of locally within our country. Creating local heritage sites and cultural museums. B says organizing online games with people of other cultures. C says starting a YouTube channel about the culture of European countries. Remember, it's Jamaica now. And D says hosting school events to promote health and wellness among Caribbean people. The most appropriate answer would be A, creating local heritage sites and cultural museums. Number 12. Which event in 1944 gave all eligible Jamaicans the right to vote? Right away, if you remember in your dates, you know that 1944 is universal adult suffrage, so the answer would be C. Emancipation is 1834, independence 1962, Morant Bay Rebellion is 1865. The answer is C, universal adult suffrage. Number 13, a dependent, key term here now, dependent, alright? A dependent country is most likely to do what? A says they're more likely to follow decisions and policies made by their mother country. B says to build and maintain relationship with other countries. C says to obey the laws made by their parliament only. And D says they're most likely to control all of their own affairs, and which is wrong because D is speaking of independent country. Alright? The answer is A. A dependent country is most likely to follow decisions and policies made by their mother country. Let's look at number 14. And it says, read the information in the 3 sources below, then use it to answer items 14 and 15. Source 1 is about Norman Manley. Here are some points about him. Premier of Jamaica. Formed the People's National Party in 1938. Supported the West Indies Federation. Source 2 is about Marcus Garvey. Formed Jamaica's first political party, which was the People's Political Party in 1929. He started the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, in 1914, and he taught black people to be proud of their race and culture. Source 3 is about Alexander Bustamante. He founded the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, in 1943, was the first Prime Minister of independent Jamaica, and the Bustamante Hospital for Children was named in his honor. Let's see what they want from you. Number 14. Which source or sources provides information on how individuals were encouraged to think highly of themselves? Right here, I know Mr. Marcus Garvey was the man for that. Taught black people to think or be proud of their race and culture. So source 2 is Marcus Garvey, so we know that the answer is B. Number 15. Which source or sources identifies ways in which Jamaica's national heroes showed interest in how the affairs of the country were directed? And it's all 3 sources, because all 3 men did play a part in the directing of the country. Alright, they did put in some work in the fight for independence. 16. Marty played an important role in which country's independence movement? And you know Marty is Mr. Cuba. Alright, so the answer is A. Moving on, let's go to number 17. Which of the following did Norman Manley help to bring about in Jamaica? A says it's colonization, B says emancipation, C indentureship, and D independence. It's D. He was one of those 3 men in the fight for independence. Read Jamaica. Number 18. Which event was led by Toussaint Louverture? And we know Toussaint will have to do with Haiti. So it's going to be C, the Haitian Revolution. 10-year war, which is at A, is Cuba. Labor unrest in 1938 is Jamaica. West Indies Federation is also Jamaica. Alright? Ending our being apart. 19. Let's cut 19 and 20 together. Number 19 says, which country negotiated with the colonizers or their colonizers for independence? We know it's Jamaica. We never went into a fight for our independence. We had peaceful negotiation. Cuba had their 3 wars. Haiti had their revolution. We got ours by peaceful negotiation. Number 20. The blue maho is Jamaica's. Is it our national flower, which is at A, national fruit, national tree, or the national bird? D, national bird. Alright, so we know the national flower is Lignum vitae, which is at A, the fruit is the ackee, the bird is a swallowtail winged bird, so it's got to be C, which is a national tree. National tree, C. Moving on, Getting there, we're now halfway through the paper. If you have not yet subscribed, take a pause, subscribe. If you have not made a comment yet, do so, share, and let's get back. Alright, read the information in the box below, then use it to answer item 21. Here is the information. Jamaica has made a few changes to its coat of arms. One of these changes was made to the motto. Here is 21. Which is the main reason for the final change to the motto? A says it is to provide a modern version of the motto. B says it is to pay tribute to the first ethnic group who lived in the Caribbean. C says it is to recognize the togetherness of the ethnic groups in the country. And D says it is to show the relationship between the indentured servants. Out of many one people, C, to recognize our togetherness of the ethnic groups. Alright, moving on to 22. And it says, which statement about Jamaica's decision to seek independence is true? A says Jamaica was forced to seek independence because other countries were doing so. B says the desire for independence was greater than the benefits of being a colony. C says being independent meant that Jamaica could have many social classes. And D says becoming independent meant having a stronger tourism industry. The most appropriate answer is B, that the desire to become independent was greater than the benefits of being a colony. Moving on to 23. A government that is elected by the citizens of its country is called we know it's a democracy. Anytime you hear election, voting, democracy. 24. Which branch of government is responsible for making laws in Jamaica? Already we know it's the legislative. Remember, the executive will carry out the law. Alright, so the answer is A, the legislature or legislative branch. Moving on to 24, we just did 24, 25. And it says, which of the following is responsible for maintaining public cemeteries and parks in Jamaica? If you know the government structure well, then you know it's local government. Central government will deal with management on a national level. Local government will look at parish level and deal with cemeteries, parks, and those. Alright? Moving on to 26. And it's on a new page. Here we have a structure of the Jamaican government system. And it says, read the information in the three sources below, then use it to answer item 26 or items 26 to 28. Source 1 is a diagram showing the structure of the Jamaican government, and you can look and examine. So you have the monarch at the top. When you hear monarch, think of Britain. Then you have the legislative arm right here, executive, and then we have the judiciary. Alright, now under the legislative, we're having the parliament made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Senate has 21 members. Remember that 13 of that 21 is recommended or suggested by the Prime Minister, the ruling party, and the other 8 by the opposing party, that leader. And then you have the House of Representatives, which is the lower house with its 63 members, including the Prime Minister, and all voted for by citizens. So everybody in the House of Representatives, they are voted for. Alright, then in the cabinet, you can read here to see what it says about the cabinet. Over here speaks of the judicial arm of government, security, justice, enforcement, and punishment, and all of these of the law. Alright, let's move on to see what they need. Source 2. The King of England is the head of state of Jamaica, and the GG is selected to represent him in the country. The Prime Minister is the head of government. That's source 2. Let's look at source 3. Source 3 is a pie chart showing citizens' response to a survey question. Here is the question. Do you know how the Governor General of Jamaica is selected? Look at your key carefully. Alright, for this one, the colors are not showing up brightly. So, 80%, can't see the key so clearly as in the shading. But this is a lighter shade, so I'm thinking the bottom here, not sure, looks lighter, so let's take that to be 80. And the darker shade looks like it's at no, and the yes is 5. So let's say 15% says no, 5% says yes, and 80 says not sure. Let's hope they're not asking anything to give those percentage, because it's not really clear there, as in the shading. Alright, so 26 says, based on the information in source 1, which of the following has members who are elected by citizens? Already we know, and you should remember, it's a House of Representatives. Everybody in that house is voted for by the people. Alright, number 27. Which source or sources would be most helpful in determining one of the duties of the Governor General? So where it speaks of the GG, then you can go back and look to see if it tells you anything about his work, and its source 2 tells you that he represents the head of state. Where are we? Source 2, which is B. Alright, let's move on to 28. A student was conducting a research and found source 1 and source 2 very useful. Which of the following is most likely to be the focus of the research? A says, what are the functions of the Jamaican government? B, who is the Governor General of Jamaica? Remember, we're looking at source 1 and 2. C, how is the Jamaican government organized? And D, where does the Jamaican government meet? Because it's sources 1 and 2, we have to conclude that it's more likely to be C, speaking of the governance of the country, because this whole structure is speaking of how the country is governed, and source 2 is speaking of who is the head of state, and that the GG represents, and the Prime Minister is the head of the government. So all of these sources 1 and 2 speaks of the organization of the government, so it would be C. Alright, 29. Which action is an example of responsible Jamaican citizenship? Remember, we have rights, we have responsibilities. A says attending a church service. B says paying your property tax each year. C, sharing your views on social media. D, moving from one parish to the other freely. Alright, that's more like a right. Freedom of movement is a right. That's a D. So the most appropriate, which is your responsibility, is paying property tax. Not for you, no, you don't pay property tax, but that's a right for responsible citizens of Jamaica. Alright, number 30, we're getting there. Oh yeah, the source of a river is the place where the river, A says that's where the river bends. B says the source is where the river begins. C says the source is where the river changes. And D says the source is where the river ends. The answer is B. The source is where the river begins. Bends is more like a meander. C, changes, not really. That's go like through the different courses of the river, then it will change somewhat. And D, where it ends, is called the mouth. So the answer is B. The source is where it begins. Moving on to 31. Here we have another map. Instruction says, examine the map of the world below, then use it to answer item 31. Let's have a good look at the map, and we're seeing two places here. We're seeing that North America has a Z on it, Australia has a W on it. So more than likely, we know they're asking us something about these two. Let's go and see. Number 31, let's leave it so we can see everything. Too small, no, can't do that. It says, which continents are labeled Z and Y? Already we know Z is North America, Y, W is Australia. So we're looking for Z with North America first, and W being Australia second. The answer is C. Moving on to 32. Which of the following is a piece of land completely surrounded by water? We're all Caribbean people and we know it's an island, alright? Not a continent, not an isthmus, not a peninsula. I won't go over those, but we know it's an island that is completely surrounded by water. Alright, let's look here at this map. It says the map below shows the route taken by an airplane. Examine the map, then use it to answer items 33 and 34. Map showing a flight route or route, alright? So here we have our measurement, our coordinates. So it's showing us north over here and the west measurement at the top up here. Alright, so we have two measurements, north and west. Let's look if there's a key. Remember, you always observe your key. Yes. So the key here, the yellow dot, anywhere you see a yellow dot, which we see one right here, is the point of departure. So that's where the plane is leaving from, leaving Jamaica. The pink dots are the stops. So let's see how many stops we have. The plane will make a stop right here. It's going to make a stop here. And so here is one, then another one up there. So 2 stops so far. Let's see what else is on the key. And the black plane there is representing the airplane itself. So let's see. 33 says at 20 degrees north and 70 degrees west, the plane was located at its, so 20 degrees north, 70 west. Is it 70 west or 70? Yes, 70 west. Remember, we go latitude, which is across, then longitude, which is up, down. So horizontal, then vertical. Here we have it. Let's go up and look at that. We're in 70. Yes, so we're at 20 degrees north, 70 degrees west, and we have a pink dot there, which means based off of the key, it's a stop. So the plane was at its first stop. Good. That's B. Let's look at 34. What was the approximate location of the plane at 2 p.m.? 2 p.m., 2 p.m., 2 p.m. Let's look at the time. Here is 2 p.m. and it has a pink dot. So now if it's asking for location, we have to look now at the coordinates to find the location. Alright, so let's go. At 2 p.m. I'm going to use this. So here is it at 2 p.m. You're seeing this dot coming in. Here is a pink dot, which means a stop. So at 2 p.m. let's go across. It was at, so we're reading coordinate now, latitude, which is 25 degrees north, then longitude would be here. That's a little too far off. Longitude would come here. Now we're reading this way, so from 70 to here, it's not fully 75, it's 75 right there. So it's about 73, 74. Let's see if we have any reading that says 25 degrees north and 73 degrees southwest, or 74. It's between those two, 73, 74. So yeah, we have a 25 north and a 23 west. West I meant up top, so the answer would be B. 25 north, 73 west. The plane would be there at 2 p.m. Getting there, guys, we're pretty close. We're now at a reading for item 35. Read the paragraph below, then use it to answer item 35. Here is the paragraph. Let's read. The government has identified an area in the community of Simmons Gap for a new housing development. Simmons Gap is found in the cool and scenic Simmons mountain range. The forest in this area is also home to the indigenous cocoa bird. As an environmental consultant, you have been asked to advise the government on ways to reduce the possible negative effects that this housing development may have on the cocoa bird's natural habitat. Alright, let's see. 35. Which of these strategies now can be used to reduce the possible negative effects of the new housing development? A says we should create a protected area within Simmons Gap community. B says plan a bird watching tours to the Simmons Gap community. That's not protecting anything, that's more fun. Alright. C says build retaining walls around the Simmons Gap community. D says teach Simmons Gap's resident about pollution in the community. That has nothing really much to do with what's up there. The appropriate answer is A. Create a protected area within Simmons Gap community. This protected area they're speaking of here is more likely, tell me the answer. 2, 1, forest reserve. Very good. So it's a forest reserve because remember it speaks of them creating damage to the natural habitat of the cocoa bird. So they will be creating, and it's in the forest area. So the appropriate thing to do is A, creating a protected area within that community. Alright, 36. The Mayday Mountains is located in the parish of M, Manchester. Answer is D. Moving on, going down to 37. It says read the conversation below, because I'm seeing the two. Read the conversation below, then use it to answer item 37. Here is the conversation. Here's a lady speaking. I can't believe these people. They continue to destroy the habitat of the birds when they remove so many trees from the sides of the mountain for their furniture making business. Here is the man. I am also upset. All the trees from my district are gone from the last time they came to prepare for the road construction. Our nation is so sad. 37. Based on the conversation, Which activity has been negatively affecting mountain environment? That if you know your science and your social mix up, you know it is deforestation, which is B, cutting down of trees. Alright, let's look at 38 to 40. God, guys, can you believe this? We're there, right at the end. So examine the three sources below carefully, then use them to answer items 38 to 40. Source 1. A graph showing average annual temperature for Ligani and Cinchona Garden. So here you have Ligani and Cinchona Garden, and you're seeing that the annual average temperature for Ligani is 30 degrees Celsius. Average for Cinchona is 15. Alright, let's look at source 2, and it's a table showing average annual rainfall for Ligani and Cinchona Garden. So source 1 is their temperature, source 2 is their annual rainfall. So Cinchona Garden gets 3,500 millimeters of rainfall, and Ligani, they got 764 millimeters of rainfall. Let's look at source 3, because they said 3 sources. Now this is a map of Jamaica showing the height of different areas, and you know your map, all the green areas are showing us lowland, plains, yellow hills and lower mountains, and the dark brown areas are over 600 meters, which would be mountains. Alright, remember to check your key always. Brown over 600, we know that's mountain height. Yellow 200 to 600, we know that is hills, and we have a few exception of mountains with that measurement, and 0 to 200 meters would be our plains, flat lowland areas. So here they've pointed out again Ligani and Cinchona Gardens. Alright, so you'll see that Ligani is in the green area, which means it's on the plain in the flats. Cinchona Garden is in the mountainous area. Alright, it's in the brown shaded area. 38. Which source or sources gives information on the amount of rainfall each receives each year? Sorry, the amount of rainfall Ligani receives each year. So which one shows the amount of rainfall? Can I look at the map and say it gives you the amount? Source 1 is about the temperature, so it would have to be source 2, which speaks of the rainfall they receive. So let's see if there's one with source 2 only, and that's B. Only source 2 gives us the amount of rain Ligani receives annually. 39. Oh my God, we're getting close to the end. Which source or sources can be used to explain how mountains affect temperature? Alright, so mountains and temperature. No, sorry guys, making a mistake there. Which ones can be used, which one or ones can be used to determine or explain how mountains will affect temperature? And speaking of temperature, we know source 1 is one of them, and when you look at the map, you're seeing that source 3 is also one of them, because it's showing you the mountainous area and the lowland area that both areas are in. So it's going to be source 1 and source 3. The answer is C. Guys, we are at number 40. I wanted to do a drum roll. We've made it to the end. Pat yourselves on the shoulder before we even complete number 40. Give a thumb up. Give a yes. Alright? Thank you for staying with me this long. We are at the final item in the 2025 PEP curriculum-based social studies exam. Number 40. Read the statement in the box below, then use it to answer item 40. Here is the statement. Several factors have contributed to the difference in the amount of rainfall that Cinchona Garden and Ligani receive. Which source or sources provide or provides information that can be used to support the statement in the box? So it speaks of the amount of rainfall now. So is it source 1 only? B says it's only source 2, C says its sources 1 and 3, and D says its sources 2 and 3. Remember, the key thing here is rainfall. Rainfall. Source 1 speaks of temperature, source 2 rainfall, source 3 shows you a map of Jamaica, relief map showing you the mountainous areas and lowland, and remember that the higher you go, the most mountainous areas will get more rainfall. So we know that even though rainfall is not on the map in words, the map is really speaking as to why Cinchona Garden, hold on, I'm putting something wrong on here, let me get that off, as to why Cinchona Garden would have received more rainfall than Ligani. So the answer is clearly letter D. Letter D. Sources 2 and 3. And with that, my champions, stars, beloved ones, we've come to the end. Alright? The end. Give yourselves a pat on the shoulder. And now I can't ask you which one next to do because we're only down to science for 2025. So that will be the next video in the PEP 6 now. Past papers. Alright? Take care, walk good, and I'll see you in the next video.